as cars now on the racetrack, as we are just a few moments away from battling 15 quick laps to race their way in to the 7-Up 150. While we are talking about Toledo Speedway, why not give you a little update on what's going on here the rest of the season. The Friday night opener coming up at Toledo Speedway here on May 9th. They will have the sportsmen and the figure 8 cars will be in action here. And then a big racing weekend coming up May 17th and 18th. Menards 200 for the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards. Saturday will be practice qualifying plus a 35-lap sportsman feature. Sunday, the on-track autograph session will start at noon, racing at 2 p.m. And coming up on Wednesday, May 23rd, Woodville Auto Finance Night of Destruction, one of the biggest nights of the year here at the Toledo Speedway. School bus figure 8, train figure 8, boat figure 8, race car bowling, road rage race, X cars, and the ARCA figure 8s. That's one of my absolute favorite nights of the year. I will be here with my kids. Hopefully,
Aren't you going to be in an entry?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. We'll see. We'll see. So hopefully we will see old Chaz in a school bus trying to knock somebody over on that one.
Now, I think they should have you mic'd up if you get in a school bus.
That would be the plan.
Might have to have a dump button, though, 5-second delay on your audio.
It won't be live. It won't be live.
Okay.
We're working on it.
Good.
Coming to the one-to-go signal again. Alec Carl up on the front row alongside Donnie Wilson outside row number 1. Matt Kokorik and Andrew Morrissey in row number 2. Chris Eggleston and Dennis Strickland in row number 3. Brett Robinson and Wes Griffith Jr. in row 4. Boris Yurkovic and Joel Thiessen rounding out the top 10. Field now bunched up nice and tight through turns 1 and 2, half a lap away from the green flag.
Now let's remember, if there is a caution in any of these races, they will revert to the last lap, and that's where the cars will be scored at.
Field now picking up the pace through turns 3 and 4. Looks like Brian Duncan waving that green flag. We are racing for 15 laps to set the final 4 starters in the 7-Up 150. Side by side through turns 1 and 2. Alec Carl now losing traction a little bit on a turn 2. That's going to allow Donnie Wilson to sneak out to the lead in turns 3 and 4.
Donnie Wilson is able to clear Carl. Now Morrissey on the outside of Carl, challenging for that second spot. He clears him off turn 2.
Morrissey working his way now on the back bumper of Donnie Wilson down the backstretch. First side-by-side battle going to be Chris Eggleston and Dennis Strickland. Those two arguing for space in turns 3 and 4, and we have big trouble out of turn number 4.
Dennis Strickland getting turned sideways. The 33 as well over their turn. Wes Griffith. A couple others late to the scene, the 44 of Rick Brown as well, and the 75, that is Joel Thiessen.
Looked like Dennis Strickland really wanted to find his way down to that lower groove. He tried and tried. Unfortunately, Chris Eggleston was right there, and you know, when you're battling just outside of that transfer position, you're not going to give any ground, and those two just came together. Dennis looked like he had it checked up, but had a little help getting turned around, and everybody just scattered behind him.
And that started on the entry to turn 3, and the wreck didn't happen until the middle of turn 4 there, as Strickland got a bump from behind, got sideways, tried to correct it, but he got a tap from behind and got turned sideways, which stacked everybody up there. Luckily, no real damage to any of the race cars involved there. Everybody drove away from the scene. Over in the middle of turn 3 and 4, hard on the hammer, green flag now in the air. Great restart by Donnie Wilson, but Andrew Morrissey now fighting back in the middle of turn 1. Give Wilson a spot, but here comes Morrissey back around the outside.
Morrissey used that outside line to his advantage as we have more trouble down the backstretch this time around. Looks like the 43 car, big trouble over in turn 3 and 4. Wow, it looked like the 43 car of Matt Kokorik was the first one to make contact with the wall coming out of turn number 2. The 75 car, Joel Thiessen, getting turned head on into the wall coming into turn number 3. Looks like he kicked a lot of mud out onto the racetrack as well. Boy, this is exactly what we were talking about, what we didn't want to see happen, but we knew it was going to, Tim. With only 15 laps to go, these guys don't have time to make it happen. A lot of impatience on that restart, and it's going to put 2 drivers out of contention here.
A heads-up move as well. Take evasive action by Matt Hall in the 04.
He did a very nice job
getting
to miss that one.
We got quite a bit of rain here earlier in the week in the Toledo area, and as we mentioned, off the racetrack probably about 20-30 feet. It's almost like a mini lake down there.
Used to be the Great Black Swamp.
Yeah, so that's very true.
1 to go signal given from the flag stand. Field now doubling up side by side in turns 1 and 2. Again, Donnie Wilson, Andrew Morrissey up on the front row. Alec Carl, and it looks like, trying to get a visual on it, is that the 43?
That is.
Of Matt Kokorik, even after getting up into the outside wall, Matt Kokorik will restart fourth as the field now picking up the pace and looking at the green flag. 14 laps to go here in the last chance race for the 7-up 150.
Donnie Wilson's the first one to get to turn one, but Morrissey now fighting to his outside as the 43 Kokorik is out of the groove here, restarted in fourth all the way now back to the last car on the lead lap.
Obviously a lot of damage to the right side of that number 43 car as we have a side-by-side battle for the lead down into turn number one. Andrew Morrissey looking to the outside of Donnie Wilson through turns 1 and 2.
Race side-by-side out of turn 2, but Wilson gets the run now into turn 3. He's able to clear Morrissey. Now the battle for third under attack as we see Carl now able to clear, not able to clear the other 5 car. That is Brett Robinson.
We've got 2 number 5 cars racing side by side for that third spot, and I'll tell you, the most interested spectator in the place right now is Boris Yurkovic in that number 8 car. He's trying to figure out which one of these guys to follow through. Boris Yurkovic obviously has a faster race car, but there is not an open line available right now.
Now Dennis Strickland, we just got past the 4 car of Dalton Armstrong to move himself back up into the 6th position, and now he's starting to gain on that battle for that third spot now.
I think right now Alec Carl definitely happy to be running right where he is, side by side with Brett Robinson. As long as these 2 cars run side by side, they're both virtually guaranteed to be in this race. Boris Yurkovic has a faster race car, but cannot find a way past these 2 cars running side by side.
Carl gets the nose out in front in turn 2, but now Robinson fighting back to the inside, about a car length back to Yurkovic. Now Dennis Strickland starting to peek his way to the inside of Yurkovic in turn 3.
Right now, Donnie Wilson has about a 5 car length advantage over Andrew Morrissey in that second spot. Morrissey has 10 car lengths on this side-by-side battle for the third spot. I'm telling you, Tim, I have a sneaking suspicion that these 2 drivers are running in formation on purpose. As long as they stay side by side, no one can get around them.
Yeah, as Boris Yurkovic was right behind him, slipped a little bit on the exit of turn 4, lost a little bit of ground. Now about 2 car lengths back. Dennis Strickland about another car length off his rear end as they enter turn 3.
Will be interesting to see how patient Dennis Strickland and Boris Yurkovic are with the 2 number 5 cars of Brett Robinson and Alec Carl. As we get closer to the end of this race, I have a feeling that these 2 drivers, if they have a faster car, the bumper may come into play as we are quickly running out of laps. This time by just 5 laps to go here, 10 laps in the books. 5 to go in the last chance race to set the field for the 7-up 150.
Carl finally able to clear Robinson down in turn 2. And Robinson tried fighting back in turn 3, drifted up a little bit. Dennis Strickland now moves past the 8 of Boris Yurkovic on the front stretch to move himself into the 5th spot. Just 4 laps to go.
Yurkovic got sideways over in turn 3. He slid up the racetrack. That did allow Dennis Strickland to move to the inside. Now let's see if Dennis Strickland can find a way past this side-by-side battle for the third spot, as now Boris Yurkovic starts to slowly drift back a little bit. Maybe an issue on that number 8 car, as we now see Dennis Strickland closing up in that 5th spot. Can he make it a battle with Brett Robinson for that 4th and final transfer position?
Coming to 2 to go. Strickland a little sideways getting out of turn 4. 2 car lengths behind the 5 of Robinson as they enter turn 1. Strickland now to the outside, looking to make a move out of turn 2.
Strickland looking to the outside, trying to find a way past, as now Donnie Wilson coming out of turn number 4, looking at the white flag. Half mile remaining here to set the field for the 7-up 150.
Battle continues on for that 4th and final transfer spot. Dennis Strickland a half a car length off of Matt Robinson as they enter turn 3 and 4. Trying to get to the back end of the car, but he doesn't have anything out of turn 4.
Dennis Strickland tried to drive it in deep, couldn't get close enough to Brett Robinson to use the bumper. Brett Robinson will come across and take that 4th and final transfer position. Dennis Strickland will be driving it to the trailer. Tough break for the defending winner of the Glass City 200 here at the Toledo Speedway. How about that run by Donnie Wilson in the number 2 car? Started outside the front row, jumped out to the front, and drove away from the field. He will transfer. Andrew Morrissey will transfer to the 7-up 150, as will Alec Carl and Brett Robinson. But boy, talk about a tough way to end the day for Dennis Strickland. He will drive it to the trailer. Boris Yurkovic will drive it to the trailer. Dalton Armstrong will put it on the trailer after this one, as will the guy who towed all the way from Colorado. Tough break for Chris Eggleston. He will unfortunately load up and not be a part of the 7-up 150 here this afternoon.
And I'm very surprised that the 8 car really faded there in the last couple of laps. He was battling amongst that third and fourth position with Carl and the 5 of Brett Robinson. It was on the tail end of maybe trying to make it and push it 3 wide, but that car really fell off the last couple of laps. I'm very surprised we didn't see him transfer in.
And welcome back, everybody, to live coverage of the 7-Up 150 for the ARCA CRA Super Series and the ARCA Midwest Tour late models here at the Toledo Speedway. You haven't missed a thing. Engines have just been fired down on the main straightaway, and we are just moments away from the season opener for these two tours here in action today at the Toledo Speedway. Border Wars 2.0, the second year we have had these two sanctioning bodies with us here at the Toledo Speedway, kicking off their season. Kind of a grudge match. We've got the CRA regulars won this one last year. The Midwest Tour guys held serve at the Madison International Speedway last year. Going to be interesting to see which one of these two touring series puts their driver in victory lane. Charlie Krall alongside Tim Clegg. Tim, we've had a full day of practice qualifying in an action-packed 15-lap last chance race. That's just the appetizer, so to speak. We've got 150 laps of feature racing on tap. The main course coming right up. It's going to be a good one.
And I think everybody is going to mind their manners for the first 76 laps before we get to that 10-minute halftime break, so to speak. A lot of these guys want to be back running in the 8th, 9th, or 10th position, pull the Johnny Van Dorn strategy from a year ago. But all fingers are pointing at that 47 car, Brian Campbell, as the favorite to win this race. If you're going to battle for the victory at the end of 150 laps, he's going to be the gentleman you're going to have to do battle with.
Brian Campbell, of course, a multiple-time winner here at the Toledo Speedway in CRA competition, in outlaw late model competition. He's going to be very tough here. Qualified second, right behind Chad Finley. The first time, I believe, Chad has been the fastest qualifier here at Toledo Speedway. May have been a little bit of a surprise, but he was very strong in in practice prior to qualifying. So Chad could also be a major factor, I should say, for the victory here today.
And he's already off to a better start in this event than what he was last year. Started inside the top 10, was involved in a spin early, went a lap down. The whole second half of the race, he had to fight and claw his way back and get that free pass, and ended up coming home with the top 10 finish. 2 years ago, ended up on his roof here. So that he's already on a great start here this afternoon.
30 cars will take the green flag here this afternoon. We set the field, locked in the top 20 in qualifying. Took 6 via provisional, 3 provisionals from the CRA series, 6 from the Midwest Tour, and then we rounded it off with 4 drivers out of that last chance race. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at that starting lineup. We'll start back at the tail end of the field. Starting 30th here this afternoon, Brett Robinson out of New Albany, Indiana. He will start tail end Charlie here this afternoon. Alec Carl starting 29th. Andrew Morrissey will start in the 28th position, just in front of him. The winner of that last chance race, 27th place starter Donnie Wilson out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Of course, Donnie picking up the win at the Fairgrounds Speedway last weekend. James Swan will start 26th.
Brandon Hermiller will roll off in the 25th position, driving the H&S Dye Engineering Ford from nearby Walker, Michigan. Starting in 24th, Jason Weinkoff, 23rd, Rick Turner, 22nd, Cardell Potter, and 21st, Allie Kern.
Nick Galano will go 20th here this afternoon. Brandon Oakley will start 19th. Of course, these cars all locked in via time trials earlier this afternoon. Jonathan Island will start 18th, with Cody Coughlin starting 17th, and Brandon Watson starting 16th. He is out of Stayner, Ontario, in the Sheer Metal Products Chevy.
Casey Johnson will roll off from the 15th position. Scott Hance, multiple-time winner here at Toledo Speedway, 14th. Chris Weinkoff will roll off 13th. And Steve Wallace, who's been quick all weekend long here, will roll off from the 12th position.
Anderson Bowen will start 11th here this afternoon, with Paul Schaefer Jr. out of Portage, Indiana, starting outside row 5. Eddie Hoffman Jr., a multiple-time winner here at the Toledo Speedway, will start 9th. And as we said, our fast qualifier, Chad Finley, rolled an 8 on the invert, so he will start outside row number 4. Brian Campbell starting 7th here. Of course, Brian picking up that win back in 2009 in the Glass City 200. He knows the way to victory lane. Nate Haslai starting 6th, and Derek Griffin starting 5th.
Starting in 4th position, Ross Kenseth. 3rd, Ty Majeski. Rolling off from the front row position, Danny Rivers, and rolling on the pole, Travis Braden, the 2013 CRA Super Series champion from a year ago.
Defending champion Travis Braden up on the front row, picked up 4 wins here in the ARCA CRA Super Series last season. He's looking at the lead, at least a shot at taking the lead here as we kick off the regular season for the ARCA CRA Super Series. Nice way to open that title defense. Anyhow, of course, Travis, a full-time student down at the West Virginia University, in addition to climbing behind the steering wheel of that beautiful number 01 West Virginia University Chevrolet, the Mountaineers. We'll see how he does here. Just 29 guys he's got to beat to put it in victory lane. Should be an easy task here this afternoon, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, there are a lot of very stellar cars in this field here. I mean, sure, we don't have the 4 of the top 5 to finish here a year ago, but there's a lot more. There's a lot of young guys that want to make a name for themselves here. A lot of veterans here wanting to end up in victory lane, like Steve Wallace. And so it's going to be interesting to see who ends up at lap 150 in victory lane this afternoon.
Joe Wells bringing the pace car down onto the infield short track here. Travis Braden, Donnie Rivers now leading the field down the back straightaway, 2 by 2, 15 rows deep. Now picking up the pace through turns 3 and 4. They will be looking at Brian Duncan's green flag, which is in the air, and we are underway in the 7-up 150. Travis Braden jumping out to the lead down in turn 1.
Braden's able to get away in turn 2. Now the battle's for second. Ty Majetski side by side with Rivers. Rivers able to hold him off, but now here comes Majetski on the bottom in turn 3.
Donnie Rivers drifting up into that 3rd lane through turns 3 and 4. That's going to allow Derek Griffin in the 25 car to look down to the inside. Here comes Ross Kenseth as well, as Donnie Rivers now starting to drop back through, almost out of the top 5.
Kenseth on the bottom, Rivers on the outside. Kenseth clears him. Now here comes Brian Campbell looking to the inside. Now here comes the 8 of Eddie Hoffman looking to the inside in turn 1.
No surprise that Eddie Hoffman is fast early on in that number 8 Chevrolet. Of course, a multiple-time winner here at the Toledo Speedway. Eddie Hoffman strong wherever he goes. He now looks to the inside of Donnie Rivers. Rivers loose out of turn number 4.
Rivers continuing to slip back. Here comes the 87 and Nathan Hosley now to the inside. He is going to clear him now off turn 2. That clears the way for Anderson Bowen now looking to the inside in turn 3.
Top 6 cars now single file, make it the top 7 cars single file as Nate Hasley slips past Donnie Rivers. Now Anderson Bowen to the inside of Donnie Rivers. Rivers doing everything he can to try to keep that car down, just not handling the way he needs it to. Now Chad Finley looking to the inside of Donnie Rivers into turn 3.
Chad Finley was a fast qualifier, had to start back in the invert in the 8th position. Currently now running in that 10th position. Now move him up to the 9th position. Here goes Paulie Schaefer now looking to the inside. He clears Rivers. Now Stephen Wallace looking to the inside out of turn 2.
Again, now the top 10 cars in single file. Stephen Wallace, the first car to the inside of Donnie Rivers, puts Stephen Wallace now up into that top 10 as Rivers continues to slip back now, dealing with, I believe that is the 75 car of Chris Weiskopf down through turns 1 and 2.
Little contact, 3 wide entry in turn 1. Charlie, scary moment for Jonathan Island, the 2012 Midwest champ. I'm not sure if something's wrong with that car. He is fading back to the back half, the second half of that field there.
Couple of drivers trapped in that outside groove. Donnie Rivers not one of them anymore. Finally able to sneak back down into the inside lane, but he has dropped all the way back. I believe he is running now 15th, so a very rough start to the 7-up 150 for our outside front row starter, Donnie Rivers, having some problems in that 41 car here in the early going.
Chad Finley was able to get by Anderson Bowen in turn 2 and move now himself up into the 8th position. So we're starting to see the 42, our fast qualifier, work his way back up. We talked with the spotter. They want to be right in tow with that 47 of Brian Campbell, just a few cars now behind him.
Top 5 cars about evenly spaced from one another, maybe 5 to 8 car lengths between each of the top 5. First battle on the racetrack is going to be for that 6th spot. Boy, Nate Hasley all over the back bumper of Eddie Hoffman down into turn number 1. Hoffman still able to hold on, but boy, Nate Hasley really looking for some room. He wants to get up and challenge and race his way up into that top 5.
Hasley's car looks like it's working a little bit better in the center and exit of the corner, now starting to work over the 8 of Eddie Hoffman on the exit of turn 2. Hasley now looking to the bottom of Eddie Hoffman down the back stretch into turn 3. They race side by side in turn 4.
Hasley really trying to get up to the front of the field. We talked about this a little bit down on the grid, Tim. The driver that won this race last year was running 10th at the halfway break. I think the guy who is able to conserve his equipment the best is really going to be in a strong position to challenge late in the race. Again, you only get 4 tires for this race. The 4 tires on the car when we went green are the 4 tires that are going to be on the car when we take the checkered. So you're going to want to preserve the rubber on the race car, and I don't know if Nate Haslai is doing that right now. He is really on a charge to try to get to the front of the field.
And he ran this race very hard last year, running at 3rd and as high as 2nd in the first half of the race, ended up sliding back to finishing in 4th, but he ran a very torrid pace the whole race last year.
Keeping an eye on the field, here comes Travis Braden across the line, stretching that advantage ever so slightly on Ty Majeski in that 2nd spot, making a 15-car length lead now, working down the back straightaway. Majeski has about a 15-car length advantage himself on Derek Griffin in that 2nd spot. Griffin now making his way out of turn number 4, driving the car that I most normally associate with his good friend Brent Downey. They obviously share that ride. Griffin behind the wheel here this weekend. How about Ross Kenseth up to 4th, and his Boyne Machine teammate, Brian Campbell, rounding out the top 5.
A little bit of contact down in turn 1 towards the rear of the field. Ali Kern working over Brandon Oakley, gave him a shove on the exit of turn 2. Oakley got sideways. Both drivers were able to continue. Ali Kern says it's time to go.
And speaking of that battle for position, Rick Turner also going to throw himself in that battle. Turner looking to the outside of Ali Kern now through turns 3 and 4. These drivers battling just outside of the top 20.
And Turner's going to get that position from Ali Kern. Now he's starting to work over the 51 of Brandon Oakley, diving to the outside again. Oakley gets a great run there, but Turner pulls back even in turn 3.
Next time around for leader Travis Braden, we will complete 20 laps of the 7-up 150. Of course, 150 green flag laps. Caution flag laps will not count here this afternoon. Braden continuing to stretch out that advantage over Ty Majeski in that 2nd spot.
And this young man really...
Trouble over in turns 3 and 4. That battle we were just talking about, Tim, has come to loggerheads. Ali Kern getting into the back of Brandon Oakley, and Oakley going around to bring out the caution flag for the first time here this afternoon.
And we just made mention of it 2 laps prior, down in turn 1. Ali Kern giving Oakley a shot on entry, and he was able to regroup and keep going. And I think she gave him a warning saying, okay, it's time for me to go. Let me go. I'm a little bit quicker than you at this stage of the race. It's early. Let me go. He didn't let her go, and she gave him a shot down there in turn 3.
Thankfully for everybody involved, no contact between any race cars or the outside wall. So it looks like Brandon Oakley will be able to rejoin the tail end of the field. And we're going to jump back here before that commercial break is over, because I see the one to go signal from the flag stand. So rather than listen to commercials, we'll listen to some green flag racing here. Next time around, we will get the green flag with 20 laps in the books. Travis Braden still our leader with Ty Majeski alongside on the front row. Brent. I knew I was going to do it. Derek Griffin and Ross Kenseth in row number 2. Brian Campbell and Nate Haslai in row number 3. Green flag waving, and again on the break, Travis Braden jumping out into the lead. But now here comes Derek Griffin looking to the inside of Ty Majeski as we have problems on the backstretch. Steve Wallace goes sliding down into the infield as everybody stacking up on that back straightaway. And as soon as we went back green flag racing, Tim, caution flag going to come right back out.
Well, the old saying, cautions breed cautions. And 2 more late arrivals on the scene there. The 5, that is Brent Robinson, and the 75, Chris Weinkoff involved there as he stopped on the racetrack. Not sure if he hit anything over there in turn 3.
I don't think Steve Wallace made contact with anybody. As a matter of fact, I think Steve made some evasive moves. One of the cars, and I tend to believe it might be the 75 car, I think lost power coming out of turn number 2. And everybody just kind of stacked up, and rather than pile drive the slow car, Steve just kind of yanked it left. And as we talked about in the last chance race coverage, there's no inside wall down in turn 3 anymore, so all Steve did was take a harmless slide down into the grass, and no harm, no foul. I do believe he may have to rejoin the field at the tail end, but much better than going off with a wadded up race car, so Steve Wallace will live to fight another day here in the 7-up 150.
And that's exactly right. Good thing he kept that car rolling, because it is pretty, damp down there. There's a lot of mud, and we saw in the last chance race a car spin down there and lose a lap, so great for Steve Wallace to get that car going and stay on the tail end of the lead lap, as now he is on pit road, and crew's going to assess that race car. but a great job for him, a great heads-up maneuver there.
Last year, I believe Allie Kern was second in the points. Is that right?
She was second, yeah, second.
She's
Won the Rookie of the Year award as well.
Currently sitting 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th right now, as I count out the positions live on the air here. So we definitely do have some big-name drivers, and of course Steve Wallace, after that incident on the backstretch, he's tailing Charlie right now himself. So
and he's an aggressive driver as is.
I think he's a little aggressive.
I think this is going to be fun to watch now, him come up through the field on these.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye on the 66 car. Brian Duncan giving the field a 1-to-go signal. They're already halfway down the back straightaway. So Travis Braden and Ty Majeski now picking up the pace through turns 3 and 4. Green flag waving from the flag stand once again, and on the break, as he has the other 2 times, Travis Braden jumping out into the lead, and again, Derek Griffin looking to the inside of Ty Majeski through turns 1 and 2.
Majeski's been very strong on the outside. He's able to clear Griffin out of turn 2, now starting to reel in the 0-1 of Travis Braden out of turn 4, half a car length back as they complete lap number 21.
And now we have a side-by-side battle between the Boyne machine cars for the 4th position. Brian Campbell looking to the inside of Ross Kenseth. Kenseth now making an abrupt left-hand turn to try to get down into that inside groove. That slams the door shut on Nate Haslai. Haslai now has his hands full with Chad Finlay down in turns 1 and 2.
Haslai on the outside, Finlay on the bottom. Haslai gets a great run off the exit of turn 2, but now here comes the 42 of Finlay back now in the middle of turn 3. They race side by side on the exit of turn 4.
Drove it in deep into turn number 3 that time. That's going to give him enough momentum to carry himself past Nate Haslai, give Chad Finlay that 6th spot down the back straightaway.
Now Paulie Schaefer starting to make a move on the inside of the 29 of Anderson Bowen. Ooh, a little contact there. Bowen has to move up almost to the wall on the front stretch as they race for that 9th spot. Now Bowen gets his nose out in front out of turn 2.
Side-by-side battle for 8th down the back straightaway. Scott Hance just sitting there looking, wondering which one of these drivers he needs to follow through. Again, looks like a little bit of contact between Paul Schaefer and Anderson Bowen, but Bowen using that outside groove to his advantage and clears Paul Schaefer down into turn number 1.
And I talked with Anderson Bowen during the autograph session. He said he wanted to be 8th, 9th, 10th for the first 76 laps. A brand new race car for him, brand new crew chief. He feels like he can go to victory lane here this afternoon.
No problems up at the front of the field for Travis Braden. He's got it on cruise control as we see some trouble here down going into turn number 1. You talk about somebody being aggressive. Steve Wallace just gave Brandon Oakley the boot here at the main, right at the start-finish line. Oakley locking that car down and just about found the end of the pit wall down in turn number 1. I would say he came within about 5 feet of hitting the end of that pit wall, but boy, Brandon Oakley doing a great job to keep that 51 car out of the fence. I do believe he's going to have some flat spotted tires on that machine because he slid a good 100 yards with the brakes locked on that machine. But wow, close call from Brandon Oakley here in the 51.
And I'm not surprised. I was watching the tail end of the field for the couple previous laps and Steve Wallace was being very patient, clearly quicker than those cars at the back of the field. And he almost made it 3 wide down the front straightaway and got a little bit tired of the 51, kind of chopping him off there and sent a message there. That's the second incident, unfortunately, for Brandon Oakley that he's been in, but he's been able to drive away from both of them.
Seems like it may be a long race, does not give you a lot of time to work your way through the field. So I think the aggression level for some of these drivers has been jacked through the roof, even in the early going here.
And I think it's something we're going to continue to watch, especially with the 66 of Steve Wallace, the 77 of Jonathan Island, and the 28 of Allie Kern, as we've seen those drivers be a little bit more aggressive as trying to make their way by some of the slower cars who are in front of them.
Joe Wells brings the Groganstown Chrysler Dodge pace car down onto the infield short track as Brian Duncan giving the field the 1-to-go signal once again. So Travis Braden lining up alongside Ty Majeski once again. Going to be interesting to see. So far, it's been all Travis Braden on these restarts as, again, field now starts to pick up the pace through turns 3 and 4 on the hammer on the main straightaway. Green flag in the air, and Ty Majeski kind of hanging to the outside of Travis Braden this time, but again, Braden gets on the gas out of turn number 2 and jumps out to a 2-car length lead. This time, Derek Griffin now looking to the inside of Ty Majeski through turns 3 and 4.
Griffin pushes up a little bit in turn 4, but Majeski gets the great run at the start-finish line on that outside line. They race side by side in turn 2. Griffin on the bottom, starting to push up out of turn 2.
Still side by side down the back straightaway. Majeski has a slight advantage in that outside groove, but Griffin keeping that car hooked on the bottom through turns 3 and 4. Give the spot to Majeski down into turn 1, but Griffin still digging hard down on the inside lane.
That's going on. Here comes the 47 of Brian Campbell looking to the outside of Derek Griffin for that 3rd spot. Brian Campbell gets the nose out in front, now starting to really reel in the 91 at Ty Majeski at the start-finish line.
We've talked about strategy and how drivers plan to manage their tires. Well, I'll tell you what.
91's off the pace.
91 is indeed off the pace out of turn number 2. Ty Majeski has lost power on the car that was in that second spot. Tough break for the driver running second in the early going here in the 7-up 150.
And that's a tough break, Charlie. He had been great all weekend long, and one of the only few drivers that I've seen that's been able to utilize that outside line here in Toledo Speedway all weekend.
As I was saying, we've been talking about strategy. A lot of drivers have decided they might just maybe not go 100%, maybe only go 97% here in the first segment. Well, I'll tell you what Brian Campbell's strategy is, and it's a strategy he uses no matter what the race length is. He wants to be at the front of the field, leading laps, and have his destiny in his own hands, and that is exactly what he is doing so far in the early going here, setting him up and mowing him down. Brian Campbell now on the hunt, trying to chase down Travis Braden for the lead with some 33 laps now complete here in the 7-up 150.
I've been very impressed with Travis Braden, especially after these restarts settle in. He's able to maintain about a 3 to 5 car length lead over Ty Majeski, who was running in second, and now Brian Campbell, who is in the runner-up position. So the 0-1 has been very strong, the defending CRA Super Series champion.
And now I think we're starting to see everybody kind of settle down a little bit. First real side-by-side racing on the racetrack is going to be at the back of the top 20. Nick Galata running side-by-side with Jonathan Island and now Brandon Hermiller. The top cars just kind of settling in and trying to get some laps under their belt, trying to race their way to that lap 76 halfway break. But I still think I think Travis Braden is going to have his hands full here with Brian Campbell.
Little contact out of turn 2. Steve Wallace and Nick Galata. Wallace was underneath him and pushed up in turn 2. He's passed 6 cars since the restart, but still being very aggressive here pretty early.
Now we see the 91 car of Ty Majeski making his way back out onto the racetrack. Very disappointing early stages of the 7-up 150 for that young man. He was running second, now some 3 to 4 laps off the pace, but still out there trying to make some laps and get the best finish he can here this afternoon. Again, Ty Majeski in the hunt for that Midwest Tour Championship. This race does pay full points towards the Midwest Tour Championship, so every lap matters for that young man as Travis Braden now comes across the start-finish line to complete lap 38. 38 laps in the books. Halfway home in that first segment. 76 laps will be the halfway break here this afternoon in the 7-up 150.
The big mover here so far in this segment has been the 39, one of our drivers who transferred from the last chance race, the Andrew Morrissey machine. Started in the 24th position, now working under a race car for the 14th position, so he has moved up 10 positions here in the opening scene here.
Andrew Morrissey was very strong in practice. I don't remember exactly what happened to him in qualifying. Was definitely just a tick off the pace from what he was in practice, but boy, that car still obviously a very good machine because he has indeed made some very good evasive moves when we had some problems on the racetrack. Andrew Morrissey definitely on the march here in the early stages, as is Rick Turner in that 26 car. Rick, of course, finding the wall in practice, doing some damage to the right front of that machine because we got some really hard racing for position just outside of that top 20.
Been watching some of these guys at the back end of the top 10. Really, the 72 is Scott Hance, who has been pretty solid here this afternoon. Starting to work over the 7 machine, the rookie of Paulie Schaefer Jr. out of turn 2, almost to the rear end, now peeking to the inside in turn 3.
How about Donnie Wilson? Started back in 27th position. He has raced his way up to 11th right now as we almost have some more problems over in turns 3 and 4. Looks like the 5 car, well, one of the 5 cars anyhow, just got loose directly in front of Allie Kern and about stacked 4 or 5 cars up together. Allie doing a great job making some evasive moves. She did lose a spot to Brandon Hermiller in that exchange, but boy, we were very close to caution flag number 4 here this afternoon.
And now we have a battle for the lead over in turn 3. Side by side, Brian Campbell taking the lead at the start-finish line. Past Travis Braden. Now here comes Derek Griffin. Move him into the second spot. That clears way for Ross Kenseth out of turn 2.
Kenseth looking to the outside. Looks like Travis Braden just a tick off the pace as we have another lead change. Give the top spot to Derek Griffin in that 25 car. Derek Griffin blasting to the inside of Brian Campbell down the back straightaway. Griffin now takes over the lead.
Now, in the last couple laps, the 0-1, Charlie, I think there's a problem. Back to 7.
Has to be a problem
Has
for
to be a
Travis
problem.
Braden off the pace down the back straightaway. Very tough break for both of the drivers running up front in the early going here. Now Travis Braden bringing the 0-1 car down pit road. Unfortunate set of circumstances for the early leader here in the 7-up 150. Travis Braden now on pit road.
And that's the defending CRA Super Series champion, having unfortunate luck here. He had bad luck in this race last year when the radiator expired halfway through the race last year.
Now Donnie Wilson making his way into the top 10, looking to the inside of Paul Schaefer Jr. down the main straightaway. Wilson now trying to chase down Scott Hance, and he's on a 2-race win streak. He's on a hot streak. He picked up a big win down at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway last weekend, and of course followed it up with the win in the B-Main here today. So Donnie Wilson doing a great job racing his way up through the field, now starting to pressure Scott Hance at the back half of the top 10.
And that's a battle for the 7th position now as they pass the start-finish line. Hance goes right to the bottom. Wilson follows him out of turn 2. Now Wilson gets a great run, half a car length back as they race now down into turn 3.
Derek Griffin still at the front of the field. I have a feeling that when the field stacked up behind Travis Braden, when the 0-1 car had whatever issue it had, Brian Campbell, as we see some trouble here on the main straightaway again, the number 5 car, and I believe that is the 5 of Casey Johnson, getting a little bit loose, and it looked like he pushed up into James Swan, and Swan just about caught the fence. But we were talking about Brian Campbell. It looked like Brian Campbell, although he did get past Travis Braden, it looked like he broke his momentum just a little bit, and that did allow Derek Griffin to just blast down to the inside and take over that lead. And now Griffin able to maintain a 2 to 3 car length advantage over Brian Campbell as they start to close in on the tail end of the field.
A lot of lap traffic in front of these guys, about a half a straightaway, about 6-7 race cars trying to all stay on the lead lap. They'll get there in the next couple of laps as now the lap cars on the backstretch. Leaders now taking the backstretch as well.
You see the top 2 have about a 15 car length advantage over Ross Kenseth in that 3rd spot. Kenseth has a couple of car lengths in hand on Nate Hasli sitting back in the 4th spot. Chad Findlay rounding out the top 5. Chad's about a second back of that battle for the 3rd position as the leaders now starting to encounter those lap cars now as they enter turn 4, now making their way down the front straightaway. Leader Derek Griffin has a windshield full of drivers fighting to stay on the tail end of the lead lap.
First driver he's going to encounter a lap down is going to be the 58 of Cardell Potter. Griffin elects to go to the outside. Drivers give him the outside lane, no problem. He gets around the 58 of Cardell Potter. Next up is the 91 of Ty Majeski now in turn 2.
Majeski has a very fast race car. He indeed looks to the inside of one of the other number 5 cars here this afternoon. He's going to put, trying to at least gain some track position. This isn't a battle of position for him as he again looks to the inside. Derek Griffin just trying to stay in front of Brian Campbell at this point. Griffin using that lap traffic to set a pick and now opens up about a 10 car length lead through turns 3 and 4.
And Derek Griffin really has been solid here at Toledo Speedway. It doesn't matter what kind of race cars, and we were chatting with him during the autograph session, and we asked him why he's so good at Toledo Speedway, and he believes it's because running those outlaw late model cars has really helped him run this racetrack better overall.
Yeah, I asked him, what makes you so good here in this type of race car? And he said, well, running 14.8 in an outlaw car certainly doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt, I should say. And yeah, the first time Derek Griffin ever came here, he set the track record.
And he thinks he's okay at the track. Doesn't think he's great.
Nah, I'm not very good here. I'm okay. Those were his exact words. down in the autograph session just a little bit ago. But Derek Griffin weaving his way through lap traffic, now putting James Swan a lap down, kind of letting Ty Majeski do all the heavy lifting. He's just following the holes that Ty Majeski is opening up on him here as we are closing in on that halfway break. Derek Griffin now coming out of turn number 4 to complete lap number 62. So just 14 laps to go until we stop for that 10-minute halfway break at lap 76. Brian Campbell still sitting comfortably in that second spot. Ross Kenseth still sitting in third. Nate Hasli fourth. And Chad Findlay we're still rounding out the top 5. Findlay making his way through some of that lap traffic.
How about the big mover here? Donnie Wilson starting to really reel in the top 5 now. He's in 7th, directly ahead of him for position. Anderson Bowen in the 42 at Chad Findlay. Findlay is in the top 5, so he almost has made his way up some 22 positions.
Very impressive early, I'm not going to say early, but opening segment run, I suppose we should say, for Donnie Wilson in that 2 car. You know, we were kind of talking amongst ourselves, and we were like, boy, I mean, if he won last week in Nashville and he's in the last chance race here, what does that say about the field in Nashville? Well, I think it says a lot about the guy behind the wheel of that 2 car, because he has really worked his way through the field quite well, stayed out of trouble, even though trouble has tried to find him. And he is now working his way on closing in on the top 5 as we approach the halfway point here in today's 7-Up 150.
You know, we talked earlier about the troubles that the 2012 CRA, ARCA Midwest Tour champion Jonathan Islands had. He has now worked his way back up inside the 14th position. There's now Allie Kern driving in front of us. Looks like she is having a problem very slow on the racetrack. Unfortunate problem here just before the halfway break from the nearby Fremont, Ohio driver.
Yesterday she was the fastest in practice, not the day she was looking for today. She qualified outside of the top 20, had to fall back on a provisional to make the 7-Up 150 here today. And now a lack of power on that 28 car is going to send her down pit road as we have trouble over in turns 3 and 4. Rick Turner getting turned sideways, not making any contact with the outside wall, but that will bring out the caution flag for the 4th time here this afternoon.
And Rick Turner really had worked his way up through the field nicely just outside that top 10 there, so unfortunate circumstances for the veteran of the CRA Super Series.
Very solid opening segment for Rick Turner here this afternoon as well. Again, we'd mentioned that he did get into the outside wall in practice, did a little bit of damage to the right front suspension of that car, but crew did a good job getting it back in perfect working order. And Rick Turner having a strong run, even though he did get turned sideways over there in turn 4.
Yeah, luckily, though, he was able to get out of that mud over there in turn 4, drive away, and not sure if, I believe he did lose, he did lose a lap in the process there, unfortunately.
Why don't we go ahead and recap the lead lap automobiles here with 68 laps in the books. Of course, Derek Griffin currently on top of the board, Brian Campbell sitting 2nd, Nate Hasli currently in 3rd, Ross Kenseth 4th, and Chad Findlay rounding out the top 5.
Anderson Bowen in 6th. Donnie Wilson, the big mover in this first segment from 27th to the 7th position. Scott Hance 8th. Paulie Schaefer Jr. in 9th. And Donnie Rivers rounds out the top 10.
Cody Coughlin sitting in 11th. Jonathan Island 12th. Brandon Watson in the 9 car. First time we called his name so far today. He's currently sitting 13th. Andrew Morrissey 14th. Brandon Hermiller sitting in the 15th spot. Final 2 cars on the lead lap. Stephen Wallace and Alec Carl. Of course, Stephen having an adventurous day here so far, but still managing to keep the 66 car on the lead lap, despite having, I'll tell you what, the evasive maneuver he made down the backstretch, that's what makes race car drivers, because guys like you and I would have just piled into the car in front of us. Stephen did a great job to get that car down into the infield, not make any contact with anybody else. Double file restart coming up as the 1-to-go signal given from the flag stand. Derek Griffin on the inside of row 1. Outside will be Brian Campbell, Nate Hasli, and Ross Kenseth in row number 2. Chad Findlay, Anderson Bowen in row 3. Donnie Wilson, Scott Hance, Paulie Schaefer, and it looks like Donnie Rivers back into the top 10 as the field now picks up the pace through turns 3 and 4. Green flag waving from the flag stand, and Derek Griffin on the break, jumping out into the lead down into turn number 1.
Griffin got a great initial start, but here comes the 47, charging back now on the outside. Brian Campbell now side by side, battling for the lead, gets the nose out in front in turn 3.
Again, Brian Campbell's strategy is to be out front and lead as many laps as he can. He's going to lead lap 69 for the first time today. Brian Campbell leads it across the stripe. Now Derek Griffin has his hands full with a side-by-side battle for the third spot behind him. Nate Hasli looking to the inside. Ross Kenseth, looking to the outside. Both trying to make their way past Derek Griffin down into turn number 1.
They really closed up on him in the exit of turn 4. That allowed
trouble down in turn number 1. Donnie Rivers head on into the outside wall. And boy, James Swan piles into the stopped car of Donnie Rivers. Red flag going to be out on the racetrack. Boy, hard crash down in turn number 1 for Donnie Rivers. Wow, looked like he got hooked in the right rear going down into turn number 1, and Donnie Rivers piled head on into the outside wall. Hardest crash I've seen here at Toledo Speedway in quite some time. Safety crew already on the scene down there, but wow, what a wicked hit for Donnie Rivers down in turn number 1. Field now stacking up double file behind Brian Campbell and Derek Griffin down the back straightaway. Starting to pick up the pace through turns 3 and 4. Green flag waving from the flag stand, and we are back racing with 80 laps to go here in the 7-Up 150. On the brakes, side by side, down into turn number 1. Derek Griffin getting up into that speedy dry over in turn 2, losing a little bit of traction. That's going to allow Brian Campbell to jump out to a 2-car length lead.
Nate Hasli now diving to the inside of the 25 of Derek Griffin in turn 2. They race side by side. Little sparks from the 87 on the bottom of Hasli. He's going to get the spot down the backstretch.
Nate Hasli, the highest running ARCA Midwest Tour driver, currently in that second spot. Side-by-side battle now for third between Chad Finley and Derek Griffin through turns 1 and 2. Give that third spot to Derek Griffin, to Finley, but Griffin doing a good job holding tough up in that outside groove.
Finley has the preferred groove. Our fast qualifier of the night had to start back in the 8th position. Now slowly, methodically, working his way up to the 3rd position. Tries to drift up a little bit into Griffin. Griffin having none of it, fighting his way back on the outside in turn 3.
Derek Griffin really doing a good job in that outside groove. We haven't seen many drivers able to keep that car wound up in that top lane, but Griffin doing a great job, although he is going to fall back into the clutches of Ross Kenseth, now running side by side for that 4th position down the backstretch.
Kenseth making light work of Griffin. Now here comes the 29 Anderson Bowen. There's contact in the 25 of Griffin. Sideways now on the front straightaway. Does a great move. Keeps going. No caution. What a move by Derek Griffin.
Fantastic job of driving by Derek Griffin out of turn number 4 that time. Anderson Bowen gave him a little boot coming out of turn number 4. Derek Griffin had a huge handful of steering wheel, never even really got out of the gas. And Griffin only losing 1 spot in that exchange, but wow, what could have been a huge crash really turned into a spectacular save for Derek Griffin in that 25 car.
And he only lost 1 spot in the process. That's just remarkable. Was running in the 5th position, now back to 6th. Great recovery for Derek Griffin in the 25.
And that does move Anderson Bowen up into the 5th position. We've seen Anderson Bowen in the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards, driving the 22 car for Cunningham Motorsports. One of these guys, just 16 years of age, has a seemingly unlimited future here in the world of motorsports, doing a great job here in the ARCA CRA Super Series / ARCA Midwest Tour Border Wars 7-Up 150 here today. And now Derek Griffin trying to, I bet you he had to catch his breath after that one, trying to regroup and reel Anderson Bowen back in.
And I bet you he's trying to let those tires cool down from getting that wheel full of steering wheel and cranking it hard, letting those tires cool down. Now he's starting to regroup, pull away by about 2 car lengths by Donnie Wilson now in turn 2.
No surprise at the front of the field. Brian Campbell continuing to stretch out that advantage on Nate Hasli in the 2nd spot. Brian Campbell now opening up a half straightaway advantage over Nate Hasli in the 2nd position. Chad Finley about another half a straightaway back in 3rd. Ross Kenseth still lurking back there in the 4th position in the 77 car. Anderson Bowen rounding out the top 5. Derek Griffin back to the 6th spot. Donnie Wilson, sitting in the 7th position. Scott Hance up to 8th. Cody Coughlin sitting in 9th. And Paulie Shore rounding out the top 10. First side-by-side battle on the racetrack. It's going to be Jonathan Island looking to the inside down the back straightaway. He's to the inside of Brandon Watson one of our Canadian drivers here this afternoon. Those two still working side by side down the front stretch just in front of Stephen Wallace.
They better decide who's going to get the position quickly, because Stephen Wallace has worked his way back up into 13th position. They continue to run side by side. Watson gets the nose out in front in turn 3, but now Island now hard on the gas out of turn 4, gets his nose out in front at the start-finish line.
Stephen Wallace has had an adventurous afternoon here so far in the 7-up 150, involved in the second caution flag of the day when he made an evasive move down the backstretch. Unfortunately, he was not caught up in the crash, but he did have to go to the tail end of the field. He has finally worked his way back up to where he started. Does he have enough time, and does he have enough race car to get himself back up into the front of the field? Right now, he's just about a half a lap down to the leader, Brian Campbell. I don't know if that race car is what Stephen Wallace needs to get him back up to the front of the pack.
Obviously, he's going to need a caution to get himself back up there and really get this field tightened back up so he can start to pass some cars. As finally, Jonathan Island trying to clear the 9 car, still fighting side by side for the last 3 laps. I thought Island had him cleared. Now he pushes up in turn 4 and gets a little bit sideways, but Watson fights back hard at the start-finish line.
Jonathan Island, one of the hard-nosed Midwest Tour drivers. You know, you think about these guys up in Wisconsin, Minnesota, they race 3-4 nights a week up there. These guys are as hard-nosed as it comes. He is giving up no ground to Bobby Watson in that outside groove, and Jonathan Island still looking to the inside in the battle for that 11th spot.
Now he gets almost clear of Watson. Watson's still fighting back on that outside line here. And these guys know they have to go here. Island now trying to push up out of 4, but Watson not giving an inch there, fighting back on that outside in turn 1.
And as you said earlier, Tim, Stephen Wallace not known for his patience. And I think if he gets to the back bumper of these guys, he's going to decide which one of these guys moves into that 11th spot, because I think he may use the bumper on that 66 car to kind of tell these guys. And speak of the devil, as it happens, he gets up into the Bobby Watson, but it looks like Watson may actually have an issue on that race car, and indeed he does. The caution flag is going to stop, caution flag is going to come out. We're going to stop racing, and boy, Brandon Watson having a tough break as a mechanical failure on the number 9 car puts us under the caution flag for the 6th time here this afternoon.
And right before that caution, I was watching the battle between Anderson Bowen and Ross Kenseth for that 4th position, and Anderson Bowen was able to clear him, get around him. Now and this is the strategy that Bowen said that they wanted to play, wanted to be back in 7th, 8th, or 9th for the first segment and really get hard on it about lap 90, and he's following every bit of that strategy now as he's raced his way up to the 4th position.
Somewhere along 10 years ago, something clicked with Scott Hansen, Toledo Speedway, and he has been a solid threat to win. Doesn't matter what type of race car he was in here, whether it was the ARCA Gold Cup late models, the Outlaw style cars, or the template body cars. Does not matter. Scott Hansen has been solid here just about every time he has been here over the last 10 years, as we do indeed see the one to go signal from the flag stand. Everybody doubling up side by side. Again, Brian Campbell, Nate Hasli on the front row, Chad Finley, Anderson Bowen in row 2, Ross Kenseth and Donnie Wilson row 3, Scott Hance, Cody Coughlin, Paul Schaefer, and John Island, your top 10 drivers, as the field now picks up the pace through turns 3 and 4. Green flag waving from the flag stand, and wow, Brian Campbell got a little sideways out of turn number 4 when he got on the gas. That's going to give Nate Hasli a chance to maybe take the lead down the back straightaway.
Hasli peeks the nose right out in front, but the 47 of Campbell on the bottom, the preferred line through turns 3 and 4, gets his nose out in front. He'll lead the lap of the stripe, lap 91 on the board.
Nate Hasli finally dropping in line behind Brian Campbell through turns 1 and 2, but still good side-by-side racing for that 3rd spot between Anderson Bowen and Chad Finley. Bowen in the high groove, working hard to the outside of Chad Finley. Bowen by a foot here at the stripe, but Chad Finley not giving up any ground through turns 1 and 2. Finley to the inside down the back straightaway.
Finley a little bit loose in the middle of turn 2, but kept the gas pedal down as he's able to drive by and clear Anderson Bowen. Now Ross Kenseth all over the back end of Anderson Bowen as they cross the start-finish line and head for turn 1.
Ross Kenseth in the 2nd Boyne Machine automobile here this weekend in the number 77 car. Talked to him down on the grid. Ross was trying to do both. He was trying to do the college thing, trying to do the full-time racing thing. I asked him, he's withdrawn from college. He's going to try to concentrate on being a full-time race car driver. Made the move up to the Grand Rapids area. Now working full-time in the shop alongside Kelly Byers. And boy, Ross Kenseth really aggressive with Anderson Bowen now out of turn number 4, using the chrome horn a little bit, trying to make some room on Bowen to take over that 4th spot.
Kenseth a lot better on the exit of turn 2. Now pulls side by side with Bowen in turn 3. Bowen on the outside, Kenseth on the inside. Bowen slams the door on the exit of turn 4, holds the spot as they head off down to turn 1.
Kenseth a little frustrated coming out of turn 4 that time, kicked the car a little bit sideways, had to grab a handful of steering wheel. That will allow Anderson Bowen to hold on to that 4th spot, and now Ross Kenseth having his hands full with Donnie Wilson now in the 2 car.
Don't look now, but that 72, we were just talking about him, Scott Hance starting to work over the rear end of the 2 car of Donnie Wilson. He was able to get past Cody Coughlin 1 lap ago, move up into the 7th position. So Scott Hance now starting to work his way towards the top 5.
Cars now settling down into single file order, and lo and behold, here we go, Tim. Steve Wallace back up into the top 10 for the first time here this afternoon. He was able to work past Jonathan Island on that restart. Steve Wallace now starting to close in on Paul Schaefer in a battle for that 9th position.
Yeah, been very impressed with that 7 car, the rookie candidate. Paulie Schaefer, great run for him going here. Been quick all afternoon long inside the top 5. Had a great qualifying effort and starting from the top 5 earlier today.
And again, no real surprise here. Brian Campbell now starting to stretch out that advantage over Nate Hasli in the 2nd spot. Again, opening up a half a straightaway advantage after just a handful of green flag laps here, as we have finally broached the 100 lap mark, that time by Brian Campbell completing lap 101. So just 49 laps to go here in the 7-Up 150 for the ARCA CRA Super Series and the Midwest Tour late models. Border Wars 2.0, Act 1 here at the Toledo Speedway here this afternoon. We'll put a period on the Border Wars battle when we go to the Illiana Speedway over in Schererville, Indiana on Memorial Day Monday. But for now, right now, it's the ARCA CRA Super Series with bragging rights as Brian Campbell holding on to the top spot, the ARCA Midwest Tour. Currently in a pretty good spot. Nate Hasli sitting in that 2nd spot, but you look at the top 5, 4 out of the top 5, those CRA Super Series guys.
Yeah, and there's going to be a change of position for that 3rd spot here between 2 of those guys in the CRA Super Series. That's Chad Finley in 3rd, Anderson Bowen right behind him. Bowen has been working over that rear end of the race car, especially on entry. The 42 is able to pull him off the corner, but Bowen really gets hard in the corner and closes up on Chad Finley in turn 2.
Everybody single file around the Toledo Speedway right now, but everybody trying to do exactly what Brian Campbell's doing. Brian keeping that car right on the white line. Very smooth. I've said it before, I think both the Campbells, his father Fred and Brian Campbell, could probably turn a 15-second lap here at Toledo with their eyes closed. They've got enough laps around this place. They know the ins and the outs. You won't find 2 smoother drivers here as we see a little contact out of turn number 4 between Anderson Bowen and Chad Finley. Bowen looking to the inside, rooted Chad Finley up out of the groove, but Finley doing a good job holding on to that 3rd spot in the high groove down the back straightaway.
A little bit of casual contact. The 29 says it's time to go here. Lap 107 being put up on the board. Anderson Bowen showing the aggressive side now here, the 16-year-old from Suwanee, Georgia, hunting for that 3rd position now down the backstretch.
Those guys have opened up a half a straightaway advantage over Ross Kenseth. Ross had a good car yesterday, but I could tell talking to him, he wasn't 100% satisfied with that race car, and I think he's loose just a little bit out of that race car. I think if he had it over to do, all over again, they made one more small change to that race car. He's got a very good race car, but maybe not quite good enough to get up there and race with his teammate Brian Campbell. Still a very impressive run for Ross Kenseth. First time he's been here, as you said, since 2009, as he is trying to chase down that battle for 3rd between Chad Finley and Anderson Bowen.
I think he's in the right spot right now, because I think we might have a little bit more contact, as now we see Bowen diving, dipping to the white line in turn 1, and he clears Chad Finley, move Anderson Bowen up to the 3rd spot, and he's pulling away by 2 car lengths down the turn 3.
And I was actually surprised to see that there wasn't any contact involved in that pass. I was ready for Anderson to give him the boot coming out of turn number 4, but wow, he just dipped down to the inside and drove right past him. And another pass for position here at the back of the top 10. Stephen Wallace now looking to the inside of Paul Schaefer, and it looks like he's going to bring Jonathan Island with him.
Wallace was able to clear him in turn 2. Now Island working up to the door panel in turn 3. They race side by side for the 10th position. Island, the 2012 Midwest champ, trying to get himself back asserted in the top 10 here at lap 113.
Closing in on the closing stages of the 7-Up 150 here at the Toledo Speedway. We certainly appreciate you joining us here at ToledoSpeedway.com. Tim, you and I will have the call of a half dozen of the remaining ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards Events. You can find those races over on the ARCARacing.com homepage, but today coinciding with the relaunch of ToledoSpeedway.com, they've moved us over. All in the same ARCA family, so to speak. So we certainly appreciate you joining us here this afternoon as we close in on the finish here. Some 30 laps to go in the 7-Up 150. Actually 33 laps to go to be exact in the 7-Up 150. And right now Brian Campbell having it his way in the number 47 Boeing Machine 4.
Yeah, just a few laps ago that lead was at 1.4 seconds. Campbell's now turned up the intensity as we have a battle for second in front of us. Anderson Bowen all over the rear end of Nate Haslai through lap traffic.
You want to talk about a guy that has turned up the intensity. Anderson Bowen in that 29 car has really turned up the wick here over the last 10 laps. He is now all over Nate Haslai down the front stretch here, and Bowen now trying aggressively to work his way past Nate Haslai to take over the 2nd spot and in turn chase down Brian Campbell, who continues to stretch out the advantage here with just 30 laps to go in the 7-Up 150.
Brand new race car, brand new crew chief for the 16-year-old, giving him a shot of confidence now as he clears Nate Haslai in turn 2, move Anderson Bowen, the 16-year-old, up into the runner-up spot with just 31 laps remaining here.
Not that we didn't think Anderson Bowen was a good solid race car driver before this, but what a pleasant surprise to see him not only up at the front of the field. I think he's got a car that can reel in Brian Campbell if we can keep this race under green. Of course, a caution would put him right there with him, but I think even under green flag conditions, Anderson Bowen has got a really good race car. Still trying to close in on Brian Campbell, now working to the outside of some lap cars. Maybe this lap traffic will again help play into Anderson Bowen's favor.
Yeah, the 87 machine, Charlie, starting to go the wrong way as the laps are winding down. Losing another spot to the 42 of Chad Finley. Nathan Haslai back to the 4th spot. Not sure if he used up his equipment, but the 2007 Midwest champ going the wrong way.
Why don't we take a look at the interval up at the front of the field right now. 2.6 seconds that time by. The interval between 1st and 2nd. Let's see if Anderson Bowen can close it down. Nope, it's going to stay right at 2.6 seconds between leader Brian Campbell and 2nd place Anderson Bowen. He is going to have some help from some of these lap cars if he has a chance to reel them in, as we are now closing in on the 25 lap to go mark here in the 7-Up 150.
He was able to pick up 3/10 that lap, so the 29 car definitely on the move, picking up 3/10 from 2.7 to 2.4. That last lap is the leader fighting his way around traffic on the front stretch.
The leader has been working his way through some singular lap cars, but within the next 5 laps or so, he's going to have a line of 7 cars directly in front of him that are going to want to stay on the lead lap. And I think that is going to play into the advantage of Anderson Bowen, who is working through open racetrack right now, and again, continuing to close in on our leader, Brian Campbell, as we are at the 25 lap to go mark here in the 7-Up 150. 24 laps to go that time by for our leader, Brian Campbell.
The unfortunate thing for Anderson Bowen, he has 3 cars, now 4 make it, lap cars between himself and the leader. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can get past these lap cars quickly. And as you see, Nick Galata give Anderson Bowen plenty of room in turn 4.
Anderson Bowen working to the outside of Anderson Bowen, now closing in on the tail of Eddie Hoffman. Hoffman just a bit off the pace today in the LisaThomasSalon.com Chevy. One of the drivers that has won this event, one of the incarnations of this event in the past, as boy, the lap cars directly in front of Brian Campbell really racing hard amongst themselves. This is going to get interesting, Tim, as we are closing in on 20 laps to go. Brian Campbell by no means is going to be able to walk this one home.
No, especially if these guys get to side-by-side in front of him like they are, as we see Derek Griffin now looking to the outside of Jonathan Island. Griffin had to restart at the tail end of the field after making a pit stop. He has worked his way now up to the 12th, maybe the 11th spot as they exit turn 4.
Again, 2.3 seconds the advantage. Again, Anderson Bowen getting trapped behind some of those lap cars.
Oh, there's contact on the front
there
stretch.
is some pretty significant contact. Looked like Rick Turner, Jonathan Island, and Derek Griffin all bouncing off of one another, I should say, directly in front of the leader. These guys racing really hard, and this is exactly what Anderson Bowen was looking for. Can he use this to his advantage?
These are guys 7th all the way back to the 14th position, racing to stay on the lead lap here, and they're not going to give up anything here as they were side by side directly in front of the leader as they're side by side again in turn 4 in front of the leader.
Alec Carl to the inside, Derek Griffin to the outside, Rick Turner battling in that group as well as Jonathan Island. Brian Campbell trying to weave his way through and put these guys, they're battling for position and battling to stay on the lead lap. This could be a recipe for disaster. Anderson Bowen now closing that gap in under 2 seconds as we have just 16 laps to go here to settle it in the 7-up 150.
It's getting pretty dicey out there in front. Paul Schaefer to the outside, Rick Turner to the inside, Brian Campbell trying to work to the bottom, work past both of them in turn 3 and 4 as Turner gets a little bit sideways now in front of our leader in turn 1.
We talked about hanging the carrot in front of Stephen Wallace earlier, and would it be enough to get him up into that top 10? I think Anderson Bowen has got the carrot directly out in front of him. He is digging hard in that 29 car, significantly closing the gap on leader Brian Campbell, and he's doing it with some of these lap cars who are actually racing him. Andrew Morrissey really racing Anderson Bowen hard through turns 3 and 4 that time, but Bowen doing a good job closing the gap. The thing is, will these cars get out of his way and allow him to get up to the back of Brian Campbell's car, as we now have 137 laps in the books, just 13 to go to settle it here today.
That gap was 2.7 seconds before Campbell was getting in lap traffic, now down to 1.1 that last lap for the runner-up Anderson Bowen.
Boy, Paul Schaefer getting really loose in the 7 car directly in front of Anderson Bowen. But right now, the thing that he has in his favor is that Rick Turner trying really hard to get around Alec Carl. These guys not giving Brian Campbell a groove at all, and that's going to allow Anderson Bowen to close that gap even more as he comes across the line. Let's look at it. Just 1 second, the difference between Brian Campbell and Anderson Bowen in that 29 car with just 11 laps to go here in the 7-up 150.
Bowen had lap cars running side by side now as Jonathan Island does the classy thing, gives the runner-up the preferred groove, lets him go by. Now Bowen trying to work his way past Schaefer in turn 2. There's 3 lap cars between him and the leader in turn 3.
Bowen looking to the inside of Paul Schaefer into turn number 3. He makes his way past with no problem whatsoever. Now it looks like Brian Campbell has worked his way through the bulk of those lap cars. He looks to the outside of Cardell Porter in the 58 car, easy going past him. Now the one of the 5 cars looking down to the inside. Brian Campbell clears him on the exit of turn number 4. I think he's got enough of a buffer between with some of these lap cars. He may start to be able to breathe a little bit easier now that Anderson Bowen still has to work past some of these lap cars, as we have just 8 laps to go here in the 7-up 150. But boy, now 3 wide with these lap cars directly in front of Anderson Bowen. Wow, that's not what you want to look at when you're trying to close in on the leader with just a handful of laps left.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too, because that lead was under 1 second. Now as Bowen's tried to pick his way through the lap traffic, it's up to 1.4 seconds as now they come to 6 to go. Campbell stretching out that advantage.
Campbell still trying to hunt down Derek Griffin in the 25 car. Griffin obviously has a really strong race car here this afternoon. Unfortunate that he had to make an unscheduled pit stop and give up all that track position. Had he been able to stay up at the front of the field, he's got a race car that could have kept him there. but tough break for that driver out of South Bend, Indiana, as Brian Campbell continuing to lay waste to the field here this afternoon.
You know, and we question this possible very quick pace as we're coming up to 4 to go of Brian Campbell. Could he last all 150 laps? But he has.
And here we go, Tim. Caution flag going to come out with just a handful of laps to go. This is exactly what Anderson Bowen was looking for.
It just needed that clean racetrack. Now he's not going to have any lap cars as we're going to have a double
Not
file
only
restart.
is he not going to have any lap cars, he's going to line up directly on the right side door of Brian Campbell with just 4 laps to go to settle it here in the 7-up 150.
And this young man has been close to victory, Charlie. Finished 4th last month at Mobile with the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards, then went over to South Alabama Speedway with the Southern Super Series and finished runner-up. He was 3rd last weekend at Nashville, so he's been knocking on the door of getting into victory lane. Be huge tonight if he could break through and win victory number 1.
You know, we were kind of joking about it a little bit. Some of the luck that Anderson Bowen had last year, we saw him, maybe was not as hard as the Donnie Rivers crash. He had a really hard wreck at Salem a year ago, and followed it up with maybe not that hard, you know, not as hard, but another equally spectacular crash in October at the Martinsville Speed. Actually knocked the body off of his race car. It was such a hard hit. He's had some just bad luck. And, you know, he's finally been able to keep everything in one piece, able to get to the end of the race. And here he is challenging for the win against a guy, like I said, who could get around this racetrack with his eyes closed. Anderson Bowen doing a great job here today, putting himself in position to potentially steal the win against one of the guys who is as good as it gets here at Toledo Speedway. I always joke about it on Twitter, green-white wreckers. When we get late in the race, we don't have a 2-lap dash to the checkered, but everything is on the line in this 5-lap dash. Do you think we make it caution-free?
It's going to be interesting because you have Anderson Bowen, who's searching for that first win, and Chad Finley is looking for a little bit of redemption at Toledo after the last 2 years, the bad luck he's had. I don't think we have. I think that caution will fly again. But then again, that's why we run the race.
That's why we run the race. Everybody stacking up now down into turn 3 and 4. Brian Campbell, Anderson Bowen leading the field out of turn number 4, looking at the green flag on the break. Anderson Bowen getting some momentum on the high side. Bowen trying to steal that lead down into turn 1 and 2, but boy, Brian Campbell getting a good drive off of turn 2. He stretches out a half-car length lead as they still battle side by side into turn 3.
Campbell clears him. Now let's see if Anderson Bowen can pull the crossover. We have a caution out, car in the wall over in turn 2.
Looks like the number 6 car of Brandon Hermiller getting turned sideways over in turn number 2. So let's just pretend that didn't happen. We're going to line them up and do it again. And I think if we have to do it all over again, there isn't anything Anderson Bowen's going to want to do differently. He did everything he needed to do on that restart. But Brian Campbell is just that good down on the low groove.
It's been real difficult to pass all day in the outside line. At the beginning, cars were able to maneuver past on the outside line, but in the second half of the portion of the race after lap 70, it's been pretty hard to pass on the outside line, but Anderson Bowen did a pretty good job sticking with Brian Campbell all the way down into turn 3 before that caution wave. So it's going to be interesting to see if the 16-year-old can do it all over again. But he got a great restart that looked to be a little bit of games there as you know, Campbell took the throttle in turn 3 and Bowen didn't play. He fought back and you know, almost had that lead going off into turn 1.
And we've got a 5-lap dash to the checkered between, again, it's back between youth and exuberance and old age and treachery. And you know who I'm going to take on this one.
You know, Anderson Bowen does have a win at Watermelon Capital Speedway in 2012. Just getting a message from my good friend Michael McIntyre. So he does have one victory. Looking for that first win here at Toledo Speedway.
Good to know Racer Max paying attention to us up on the roof. 1 to go signal given that time by. We're halfway down the back straightaway. Field lining up side by side behind Brian Campbell and Anderson Bowen. Chad Finley, Nate Hasli in row 2. Ross Kenseth, Donnie Wilson in row 3. Green flag waving from the flag stand. We're back underway, and again, Anderson Bowen getting a good restart on the high groove, trying to take away that lead through turns 1 and 2, and Bowen getting the power down the backstretch. He's got a car length advantage off into turn 3, but again, Brian Campbell taking that car deep into the corner in turns 3 and 4, and Campbell leading it here at the stripe.
Youngster not giving an inch though, but Brian Campbell clears him now in turn 2. Chad Finley starting to close up. Can the 29 of Anderson Bowen close up with just coming to 3 to go? Half a car length now off turn 4.
Bowen was about a foot away of being clear from Brian Campbell, and Campbell just drove that car in deep down into turn number 3, and now Campbell starting to stretch that advantage, and here comes Anderson Bowen trying to keep Chad Finley in check behind him. So everybody in that top 5 feeling racy here, as now Donnie Wilson looking to the inside of Nate Hasli to take over that 5th position down in turn 1.
Started in the 27th position all the way up inside the top 5, but Hasli tried pulling the crossover move, but Wilson slammed the door, as now we have the white flag in the air for Brian Campbell one more time around Toledo Speedway.
Brian Campbell looking at the white flag. He's got 5 car lengths in hand on Anderson Bowen down the back straightaway. Brian Campbell, again, probably could close his eyes through turns 3 and 4. This time off of turn 4, he will be looking at the checkered flag, and Brian Campbell will be going to victory lane here in the 7-up 150. Anderson Bowen crossing the start-finish line in 2nd, Chad Finley in 3rd, Ross Kenseth coming home in 4th, and Donnie Wilson coming from 27th starting position to round out the top 5 in a fantastic 7-up 150 here this afternoon.
Fantastic race from start to finish. I mean, we had it all. I mean, there was action all over the place. Obviously, the drive of the day goes to Donnie Wilson, but how about Brian Campbell? He's going to run the CRA Super Series full-time this year. He's only done that one other time, and he finished runner-up in points in 2010. So starting off their season in a big fashion.
Nate Hasli had a great day this afternoon, but the car kind of went away from him there at the end. He faded to 6th at the finish. I really thought he was going to be a contender, for a good solid top 5. But what a day for young Anderson Bowen. This is a guy, last year we saw him for the very first time as a young 15-year-old. He was a little wild, a little unpredictable. More laps behind the wheel, more time in the seat, and a lot of maturity here this afternoon. Looked like he was going to be able to steal one. 1 foot away from being clear with 4 laps to go, and somehow Brian Campbell able to keep that car wound up down on the low groove and worked his way back past, and lo and behold, Brian Campbell celebrating down in victory lane.
I bet you the 16-year-old learned a thing or two that he'll apply next month when the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards visits here for their 200-lap event. I think he learned a thing or two he'll apply to that race car here next month.
Brian Campbell, again, your unofficial winner here in the 7-up 150. Anderson Bowen in the 2nd position. Chad Finley 3rd. Ross Kenseth 4th. Donnie Wilson rounding out the top 5. Nate Hasli crossing the line in 6th. Cody Coughlin 7th. How about Stephen Wallace working his way back up to 8th? What a day for Stephen Wallace. Just one of those days where the poor guy got his golf cart stolen last night. Just one of those days, one of those weekends where
I think we know who stole that golf cart.
I have no idea who stole it, Clay. Quit getting me in trouble here. But just one of those weekends where nothing goes right, and yet somehow comes out of here in a very stacked field with a good solid top 10. Derek Griffin coming back from that late race pit stop to finish in 9th, and Scott Hance rounding out the top 10. Those 10 drivers, the only cars on the lead lap. Rick Turner coming home in 11th, Alec Carl in 12th, Paulie Schaefer in 13th, Jonathan Island back to 14th, Andrew Morrissey 15th, Brandon Hermiller 16th, and Brett Robinson in 17th. Those drivers were 1 lap off the pace. Casey Johnson, Cardell Potter, and Ty Majeski rounding out the top 20.